Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
The president has the authority to name appointees to the Supreme Court. What can be done about it? The president is elected for 4 years, not 3 years, so the power that he has in year 3 continues into year 4, and maybe some members of the Senate will wake up and appreciate that that's how it should be.
Every nominee was greeted by committee members. Every nominee got a committee hearing. And every nominee, including Justice Kennedy in an election year, got an up and down vote. Not much of the time, not most of the time, every single solitary time. There's only one rule I ever followed on the Judiciary Committee. That was the Constitution's clear rule of advice and consent. And advice and consent includes consulting and voting. Nobody is suggesting individual senators have to vote yes on any particular presidential nominee. Voting no is always an option, and it is their option. But saying nothing, seeing nothing, reading nothing, hearing nothing, and deciding in advance simply to turn your back before the president even names a nominee is not an option the Constitution leaves open. It's a plain abdication of the Senate's solemn constitutional duty. It's an abdication, quite frankly, that has never occurred before in our history.
Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID.
Joe, you've had 308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. You were here, it wouldn't be 200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You didn't want me to ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
all right, gentlemen,
Europe, which was heavily infected. You would have been much later, Joe.
Mr. President, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Right. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Joe, you agreed with Bernie Sanders, who's far left, on the manifesto, we call it, and that gives you socialized medicine.
I'm here standing facing you, old buddy. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
Let him.
There is no manifesto, number one.
Please let him speak, Mr. President.
Number two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan.
Folks,
absolutely
folks, do you have any idea what this clown's doing?
They call it Medicare.
Do you have any idea?
Socialized medicine. Obamacare is no good. We made it better. And I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is.
Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take in that'll become the issue. I'm not going to answer the question
because
you answer that question?
The question is radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on? If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. Look at what we've done. I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic.
This is no time for Donald Trump's record of hysterical xenophobia.
Banning all travel from Europe or any other part of the world may slow it, but as we've seen, it will not stop it. and travel restrictions based on favoritism and politics rather than risk will be counterproductive.
I know when you go back to the beginning of this, the China ban was very heavily discussed. Were you involved in working with President Trump on deciding to ban flights from China?
Yes, sir, I was.
Do you agree with that decision?
I do.
Do you think that decision saved lives, Dr. Fauci?
Yes, I do.
Do you agree with the decision when ultimately we saw spread in Europe, and then the president recommended that we extend that to Europe? Did you participate in that discussion?
I was actively involved in that discussion, sir.
Do you agree with that decision?
Yes, I do.
Do you think that decision saved lives?
Yes, I do.
Do we extend that to the United Kingdom? Were you part of that decision?
I was.
And do you agree with that decision as well?
I do.
Did that decision save lives?
Yes, it did.
In fact, Dr. Fauci said President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look.
I'd be lying to you to say that he hasn't been responsive to our needs. He has.
And I want to just thank the president personally on behalf of a grateful region, on behalf of a grateful state. Could not have happened soon enough, and it would not simply have happened without his support and leadership.
I've been talking to President Trump. We're working in partnership, and he has activated the federal government. He's doing what he has to do, and I respect him for it. I respect him for it. Fairness dictates that kudos where kudos are due, and here the vice president and the president responded very quickly. So I want to thank them for that. The president was 100% sincere in saying that he wanted to work together. The actions he has taken evidence that. His team has been on it. His team is on it. They've been responsive late at night, early in the morning, and they've thus far been doing everything that they can do. And I want to say thank you, and I want to say that I appreciate it.
I like the fact that he talked about involving all the governors of the states. I like the fact that he talked about involving the private sector, and the rhetoric is not political, which is good.
I appreciate what your team has done for us. When we put out a cry for help with our meatpacking plants,
Yes.
You sent in a CDC SWAT team.
And when President Trump met with you and Dr. Birx to extend that another 30 days, do you agree with that decision that President Trump made to extend that?
Yes, I was very much involved, and I agree with it.
Did that decision save lives, Dr. Fauci?
I believe it did.
By and large, would you say that you and President Trump have been in agreement on most of those decisions?
We were in agreement on virtually all of those.
I appreciate that.
President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. Well, you didn't do very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There were.
I was in the White House in 2009, 2010. I was working for Vice President Biden. And what I will say about it is a bunch of really talented, really great people working on it, and we did every possible thing wrong. And it's, 60 million Americans got H1N1 in that period of time, and it's just purely a fortuity that this isn't one of the great mass casualty events in American history. Had nothing to do with us doing anything right. It just had to do with luck. And so if anyone thinks that this can't happen again, they don't have to go back to 1918, they just have to go back to 2009, 2010. Imagine a virus with a different lethality, and you can just do the math on that. Now, 60 million Americans got H1N1 in that period of time. Imagine a virus with a different lethality. And you can just do the math on that.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State.
I got started out of HBCU, Delaware State. Now, I don't want to hear anything negative about Delaware State here, okay?
If you would have had the charge of what I was put through. I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
and it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next second.
If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to provide
that
them
to Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan.
Wait a minute,
Let
Joe.
him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. I think
the
masks are
efficacy
okay.
of
You have
masks?
to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it.
Let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen.
It matters.
And they've also said the opposite. They've also said the opposite.
No serious person said the opposite.
They've
No
also said, well, look
serious
all right, I wanna
Dr.
ask you-
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did not
I
say
want to
the
ask you, we
opposite.
got a little.
WHO only recommends the use of masks in specific cases. If you have cough, fever, and difficulty breathing, you should wear a mask and seek medical care. If you do not have these symptoms, you do not have to wear masks because there is no evidence that they protect people who are not sick.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. And often, there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
If you wear a surgical mask, that doesn't provide adequate protection.
Right now, the CDC is saying masks should only be worn if you're sick or you're taking care of someone who is.
My concern is that people will feel a false sense of security using a type of mask that may not protect others from their illness.
The CDC recommends only people with the coronavirus symptoms wear a mask, not the healthy people trying to prevent themselves from getting sick.
The best place for face masks is in a healthcare setting. For people who are not used to wearing face masks, it is not a good idea to now start. You might, by mistake, in the process of fiddling around with your face mask, introduce infection to your sensitive area, the nose, the mouth area.
You are holding much smaller events with...
Because nobody will show up.
People with...
Well, it's true. Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right.
What happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance, they can wash their hands, they can wear masks, they can do whatever they want, but they got to open these states up. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax, and let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid $38 million 1 year. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build a building and we get tax credits like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that.
He says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. Need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were
president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe.
There's a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes.
The stock market goes up. That means jobs. It also means 401ks. if you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places.
We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
Chris, they said it would take a miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
He's going to bring all these jobs back. Well, how exactly are you going to do that? What are you going to do? There's no answer to it. He just says, well, I'm going to negotiate a better deal. Well, how exactly are you going to negotiate that? What magic wand do you have?
He did.
He renegotiated NAFTA. Now, when you ran for president and when Barack Obama ran for president, you both said you would renegotiate NAFTA. You didn't. He did. Nancy Pelosi said that the USMCA, which President Trump signed into law, is a, quote, victory for America's workers. Does he deserve credit for that?
No.
He renegotiated NAFTA and you didn't. But doesn't he deserve some credit for that? It's better. The USMCA is better than NAFTA.
It is better than NAFTA. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man. They can't even figure out how to deal with the fact that they have this great division between the China Sea and the mountains in the east, in the west. They're not bad folks, but guess what? They're not competition for us.
Why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
None of that is true. Let him answer.
He got $3.5 million.
It is not true.
There was a report. $183,000 a month with no experience in energy.
My son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he got $3.5 million from Moscow. Why did he deserve $3.5 million from Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that.
The answer to the question is no.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
that is absolutely not true.
I
said I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said call him. I said I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired. If the prosecutor's not fired. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. The crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe. Call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that, because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. We just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day and they put up their hands and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back.
All right,
what is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of a town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place, and you say peaceful protest? We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Violent
Are you in
crime.
favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You following
Are you
it,
in
and a little
favor
bit
of law?
order.
They're talking about, Chris. That's
well,
not what
that-
they're
that's
He's talking about
exactly-
defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law
Would you-
support.
look,
He has no law enforcement
That's not
support.
true.
Almost
That's
nothing.
look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go
Look,
ahead.
look.
Think. We have time.
We don't have time to do
No,
anything.
think
All right.
about it.
But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared
to do that,
specifically
but
do it?
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you
If
saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do
And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Antifa is a dangerous,
All right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When
in
a
2
president,
seconds.
I'm going to.
No, I don't know, Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah, you
Hunter
know,
got
Bo.
thrown. Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He
For
wasn't dishonorably
cocaine
discharged.
use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you
None of
became
that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true. I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil states. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest.
In this segment,
He called the military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
and he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape.
that.
And two, I appointed Johnson to the academy. I just want you to know that. Let's clap for that, you stupid bastards. Let's clap for that, you stupid bastards. Let's clap for that, you stupid bastards. Let's clap for that, you stupid bastards.
The Green New Deal is $100 trillion,
That is
not
not
$20
my
billion.
plan.
That's
the Green
well,
New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is
building.
not my plan.
All right.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Do you support that?
No, I don't support the Green New
Oh,
Deal.
you don't? Oh, well, that's a big statement.
I
That
support
means you
the
just
Biden.
lost the radical left.
I
Done.
support
you
the
don't.
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
There's no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating.
Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud. You see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia, mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country.
There is no
This is not
evidence
going
of
to
that.
end well.
It's all true.
I'm going to go to war behind Donald Trump.